Hey YouTube, Spirit Smoker here. I've already got my pipe lit because this is take 2 of this video. I ran a little long on the last one. So what I'm smoking today is a Old Shenandoah Appalachian Berry. I'll show it to you. Very nice tobacco. Really good flavor to it. Very, very berry. Very, very berry. Very wet the way it comes in the tin. So try to let it dry out a little bit, maybe if you get a chance. This, I basically just opened it, so it's still very, very moist. But very, very good. Now, the purpose of this video today, which is why I'm smoking it, my Rigoletto Church Warden sandblast finish, is because I want to talk about a question that I get a lot, and that's, why is my tobacco smoking so hot? I get it not from people on YouTube so much, because you guys are pretty well learned from what I'm gathering, but I get it a lot from friends of mine and people that I know that have started either smoking a pipe, or even occasionally if I've complained about getting some tongue bite or something like that, they ask, well, why does that happen? And there's no one answer. There's a couple reasons that can happen. There's a couple ways to avoid it. Now this is probably going to be a 2-part video, because I want to get into some other things with this as well. So let's get into it a little bit. Basically, when I think about when I'm just in here in my smoke room, or if I'm going to go out on the porch and smoke, what I tend to like to be able to do is just take my time and enjoy a nice aromatic tobacco. Basically because when you're in a house, it tends to stink up the room a little less. The room note tends to be more pleasant. So if you're having company later on or right then, the reaction for the most part is very positive. Now, one thing that'll happen with any tobacco, no matter what, is you'll get tongue bite if you smoke it too quickly. That'll happen with cigars as well. You get that unpleasant taste. It burns your mouth. It can be a uncomfortable sensation for sure. So obviously, taking your time, starting to get some sort of cadence with the tobacco, and with your smoke, really helps that out a lot. No matter what you're smoking. That being said, something like an aromatic tobacco, especially a more moist tobacco like Sutliff, tends to have a very, very wet tobacco. Whenever I've gotten a Sutliff tobacco and I open it up, my first reaction is, wow, this is soaking. And I tend to have to leave the lid off for a day or so to get it to a point where I can smoke it without immediately just getting this nasty sizzle sound in my pipe. And you kind of stir it up occasionally if you can, just to kind of get some of that moisture out. You don't want it to, be super dry, but you want it to get to a nice level, and then you can put it in your jars or however you store it. But this is like, for example, this tobacco came very, very wet. I just cracked the can open, and it's very moist. And I know it would be. I've had cans of this before, or tins rather of it before, and it's very, very moist. What that typically does is it just burns really. It's almost like oil to a flame. It's an extender, and it makes it burn very, very hot. Now, one way, like I said, to get around that is to dry it out. Another way to get around something like that is to smoke it very slowly. And when you're relaxing and just kind of sitting around, it's very easy to do. There's no stress. There's just you and your pipe, and you can really just enjoy it. And at your own pace, which is very important to be able to do. Now, one thing that I tend to do, especially if I'm sitting in here, is I tend to smoke it out of my church warden. One of my church wardens, I should say, because it tends to give it a longer time to smoke, longer to cool throughout the stem. Basically, I find that helps quite often. And again, I'm not rushing through the pipe. Pipe this size probably has a good maybe 1.25 inch depth to the bowl, maybe not quite that much. Yeah, probably about 1.25 inch depth or so. Now that gives me probably a good half-hour smoke. Maybe 45 minutes depending on how I pack the pipe. So you can see that from that. I mean, I've met guys that will go through 1.5 inch deep bowl, that's pretty wide, in 15-20 minutes, because they just smoke very, very quickly. And there's nothing wrong with smoking quickly other than that tongue bite. Now, if you're going to smoke a non-aromatic, like an English or Virginia, sort of a Virginia, I guess, or like a Burley, again, several things are going to, factor in. How is the tobacco cut? The thicker it's cut, the longer it's going to take to burn. And the hotter it may burn if you just keep puffing on it harshly. It's like I said, it's a ember in here, and you're acting like bellows. That air is just coming into the chamber, heating up that ember that you have, that coal almost, in your pipe, and sending the smoke out into your mouth. So there's a balance with smoking a pipe, isn't there? It's keeping that ember alive while also not letting that ember get so hot that it burns your mouth. You want it to be able to be pleasant both to your palate and to your mouth itself. You don't want it to cause any kind of burn, but you also want to get that flavor. I can tell you right now that I would rather have to light my pipe several times while smoking and maintain a cool pipe rather than never have to relight it by getting tongue bite every time, because tongue bite sucks. It's awful. It's no fun to deal with. Now, just to give you an idea, this is more of a standard size pipe that people are more familiar with. When you go into a tobacco shop or something like that, you tend to see things about this length. This is a Peterson barrel. Now, it's a little bit short and doesn't hold a ton of tobacco, probably maybe a 7/8 deep bowl and maybe a 3/4 inch diameter on the chamber. That being said, it smokes pretty quickly. This one has a P-lip on it. Now, the P-lip is a Peterson phenomenon, if you will, where they put the hole on the top of the stem. What that does is it actually forces the smoke to go up to the roof of your mouth, keeping it off your tongue and allowing you to just enjoy the flavor and no burn. Basically, it'll burn the roof of your mouth before it burns your tongue. Some people hate it, some people love it. It is what it is. I tend to enjoy it. I really like that pipe. I tend to smoke Englishes and Virginias out of that because it tends to smoke very wet if I use an aromatic. So I get a lot of that gurgle. No fun. But then on the other side of it, you can smoke something like this. Now, this is just a Bones pipe from Morgan Pipes. Um, there's no finish on it. That they say that can help with heat, in that there's no finish on it to hold any kind of heat in. It basically just lets it escape through the wood, and that can be kind of nice too. Um, Now, you're going to want to smoke something like this slower because there's very little room for that, very little time for that smoke to cool down before it gets to your mouth. It's a very nice little pipe, um, and it's very good for things like driving and doing yard work. Just looking around. You can turn your head very quickly. You can maneuver very simply with something like this. Something like this, like a church warden, not so much. But now I'll make the other video, the part 2 to this. Tune in, and I'll see you guys very soon.